I used to have this mentality of like, oh, I need to suffer in order to feel like I was working out.
In this video, I interview my client, Steph, who has dropped over 30 pounds, absolutely changed her body, her mindset. It was a really fun conversation. We talked a lot about mindset and how she's changed the way that she approaches her nutrition and her health and her fitness. So let's dive into it.
All right. Welcome in, Steph. Could you start us off by giving us a quick intro to yourself? Maybe like where are you from? What do you do for work? Any sort of other fun facts that you want to add?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Zach. So I am from Southern California. I've grown up, born and raised in the greater LA area. Where I currently work at an education nonprofit called Teach for America. I do work in sort of people strategy, operations, and learning and development. Some other things about me: I am Taiwanese American. I am the youngest in my family. Love them. Love my dog. Love my friends. Um, I'm a member of the Baha'i faith, and I have a lot of hobbies and interests. But I would
Love it.
say what I love most is just supporting others and building community.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing, Steph. Um, I'm curious, what motivated you to hop on a call and talk about your journey?
Um, so I mean, I think it's generally important to like share our stories with other people and our journeys with others. I think it helps us like build connections, find common humanity in the challenges that we face, and also just, inspiration from each other. I think I really resonate to the idea of like the underdog story. And I can't tell you just like how many times I've watched videos of other people doing amazing things and just making phenomenal progress, sometimes like against the odds. And those things always like lift me up. It's just sometimes helpful to know that there are other people going through similar things and journeys as yourself. So if I could provide any of that sort of relatability to anyone, I'm happy to do so. And also, you shared the opportunity with me, and I trust you with my life. So of course, I'm going to do this.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on here and to dive into all of that because I completely agree with you. I think that your story is so inspiring, and I love you leaning into the courage to jump on and share it.
Mm.
So, with that being said, let's dive a little bit into fitness here. So, what was the state of your health and fitness before we started working together?
Woo. so Health and fitness, I mean, it was always something that was like in and out of focus throughout my life. I've always enjoyed being like active. Um, but I think I used to have this mentality of like, oh, I need to suffer in order to feel like I was working out.
Mm,
And I think
been
also
there.
there wasn't much long-term consistency for a variety, for many different reasons. Um, but when we first started working together, oh man, like this was a time when my organization was conducting layoffs. I was sick with bronchitis, getting an average of like 4 hours of sleep per night, very stressed because of all these things. Definitely regularly skipping meals and just being generally nutritionally unbalanced. So my body was definitely not getting enough protein for sure. So that was the state, not the.
Yeah, that's wild actually when you share that because 'cause I'm like, I almost, like, forget that that's where you were at because 'cause you're like where you're at and the progress you made is just, like, light years of difference from that. So what would you say was, like I mean, you mentioned a bunch of different, challenges and things that were happening.
Yeah.
What do you think was the biggest challenge that you faced on your fitness journey?
One of the biggest challenges that I faced, I think, like prior to working with you especially, was the limiting belief of perfectionism and this idea that I do not like things that I was doing was never quote unquote like good enough. I think like, logically we all know that like life happens and things happen. It's very human to make missteps, especially like in the beginning of a journey. And for me, when I veered off, like in the past, like when I veered off that pathway of perfection, not hitting goals every day, all day, every day, like I would label that as a failure rather than, and just like throw out that plan and go into this sort of perpetual unhelpful cycle of criticism, lack of consistency to the process. And so you can imagine that cycle can be very like limiting and also like not very joyful too.
Right. No, exactly. What do you think has helped you overcome that? And like, how have you now made the process more joyful for yourself?
Yeah, I love that question. I there's a couple things that come into mind. I think firstly, like understanding the root causes for behavior is always like super helpful for me. Like getting
Mhm,
introspective about the ways in which behavior patterns might be sort of wired in our brains and where that comes from is a really good starting place. At least for me, like I feel like I have when I have a better understanding of how my behaviors and emotions and actions like manifest and like why they do that, I have a deeper compassion and love for myself. And so I think the next step after that is like, then how do we get into action like with that information? And so like practically too, I think when we reach those levels of understanding of that like self-love and compassion, we might be more open to like investing in ourselves. So like for me, I think I showed myself a lot of love when I decided that I even wanted to like work together with you on this journey. And
mm,
thankfully too,
mhm,
like I had the privilege to be able to like to even be able to do that. Um,
mhm,
but yeah, I mean, in terms of perfectionism, I would say small, consistent, like daily actions to combat mindsets tends to be sort of the winning combination for that. And for anyone who knows you, Zach, like they probably know that you love the phrase progress over perfection. And I literally have that written on a post it note along with it says trust the process, love the process on my desk. And
yep,
I remember like at the time, at the beginning of my journey, you asked me to repeat that mantra like over and over again. And I was like,
yep,
"Okay, sure." And, like, I think over time, I noticed the more and more I continued to, like, show up my for myself through those small, consistent daily actions and, like, also, like, forgiving myself. When I ran into any missteps, they became more than just, like, words to me that I was just saying to myself, but things that I actually, like,
mhm,
believe truly to my core. And, yeah, all those things
yeah.
help tremendously.
Oh, I love that. That's some gold right there for anyone listening. Steph just is dropping some gems. Random side note, I actually have that as my phone background is progress, not perfection,
Amazing.
to remind myself. But yeah, I love what you said about like, it's one thing to say something to yourself.
Mhm.
And it's another thing to have taken the action consistently
Yeah.
where that thing that you're saying to yourself actually becomes true.
Yeah.
And that's I've seen you develop that. I think that that's so cool. And honestly, I mean, that's how we create our realities, right?
Mhm.
When people say like, if you can dream it, you can do it, and all these like, almost like it feels like fake
Mhm.
how ridiculous they sound, but those are based in some truth, which is that if we like set something in our minds and then we carry out the action consistently
Yeah.
to get to that point, then it does start to become something we believe. So I love you sharing that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, when you first so going into the program, I'm curious, what was your mindset of like what did success look like to you?
Mm. Yeah, going into the program, I think I felt somewhat similar to how I feel now about just like what success would look like. I'm I'm somewhat like detached from any specific numerical goals. I mean, like data is really it's always like super helpful in understanding progress. But I think my mindset going in was really different at the start of this journey than when it had been when I had tried to start like other fitness and nutrition
Mhm.
journeys in the past. And so at
Yeah.
my start of this journey with you, I had a lot of like qualitative goals, like being able to gain strength and endurance, like climb harder walls, do more tricks in aerial, feeling more nutritionally balanced, living out like just a healthier lifestyle for longevity in general. In terms of
Yeah.
timeline too, like I think this was the first time where I also wanted to do things in a way that was like sustainable and slow and steady. And those all really contributed to, I think, like setting myself up for the ways in which like I wanted to adapt and go into this program.
Mm, that's huge. Yeah. I found that really, striking about you and in, like, our first few
Yeah,
conversations because a lot of people come to me saying, like, "I wanna lose 20 pounds. I wanna do this. I wanna do that." And every time I would ask you, "So, like, what are you trying to do exactly?" You'd be like, "Well, I don't really care about, like, the numbers or whatever. Like, I've worked past that. It's more of, like, I wanna, like you said, be healthy. I wanna be strong. I wanna be able to do, things and fall in love with the things that I'm doing."
yeah.
And, like, I think what's so cool about that mindset is that it allows you to hit all the other goals too,
Mm,
but you get to do it in a way where you love the entire thing,
yeah.
which, that's super, super awesome. I actually have a question for you. Going back, if we, like let's say we rewind, like, I don't know, 10 years, or you choose the amount of time you wanna rewind.
Okay.
Knowing what you know now, like, who you are sitting here at this moment, if you were to do over, like, at least the health and fitness part of your journey, what would you do differently?
Ah, rewinding back. Um, See, when I get questions like this, it's always like I feel like I weigh into the philosophical part way more around like the choices that we make and like what led us to this point or is where we are now. And so I'm gonna step away from that perspective and just say I think like generally a good thing for everyone to be mindful of is just sort of like speaking to ourselves with more kindness, patience, and compassion. I think whether
Mm,
it's fitness, nutrition, or anything in life, I think when we are on a journey of progress, it's helpful to have like us be our biggest cheerleaders because at the end of the day, like that is, um, we belong to ourselves, and so I think like had I understood some of these concepts like even just like 5 years ago, I think that, I would be in a different place, but yeah, I don't know if I have any regrets with that either, because I think I've learned everything to this point because of the experiences that I've had.
mm, nice. I like that framing. Um, how about for anyone who wants to achieve, like, a level of success similar to yourself, what do you think? I wanna flip this kinda to make it kind of interesting. What's something you think they should avoid?
Oh, um, I think, like I feel like I've talked about this a little bit already, but avoiding this mindset of perfectionism is
Mm,
sort of like it's for me, it's been super helpful and moving towards, like, this idea of progress, because I think it truly so many of these things are, like, day by day sort of thing is when you'll win, because there's things that happen all the time, and so when we speak to ourselves with kindness, and then when we have this mindset of, like, "I wanna do my best today, and I wanna strive for excellence, and that's what I can do in this moment right now and every day," and when I slip up and have, have challenges, I can forgive myself, then I think we're able to recover sooner and then work towards more consistency. So I would avoid
mm,
just like speaking to ourselves too harshly and like I think that comes from this element of perfectionism, not being good enough, not being like, whatever. I think it's okay to pause and be like, no, I'm like exactly enough in this moment and every moment. And it's okay to it's okay to have missteps and it's okay to like if we're feeling stuck or dissatisfied with something, it's not like a weakness, and in fact, it's a strength to be able to reach out for help and to build a community around you to reach your goals. And you'll also be like
mm.
happier along the way and like get to celebrate with people at the end of the day too. So I think it's like it's okay to lean into those things and just like speak with ourselves with kindness in the way that we would speak to, our loved ones too.
Yeah, I love that. I really love the emphasis you're sharing on, like, true, like, self-compassion, like, actually treating ourselves like our best friend.
Mhm.
Um, what would you say to somebody who would say, "Well, if I talk like that to myself, then, like, like, let's say they have a goal that they want to go to and they're currently not happy with their
Yeah.
situation." Because I've heard a lot of people say this. Well, I'm not like I haven't done well, or like maybe like I have been making poor choices when it comes to my health. So how do I balance speaking to myself kindly, even though I know I have a long way to go, and I know that like I kind of want to whip myself into shape and get going on my health journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think like separating our own internal worth and our own inherent nobility with like the goals that we might have. Cause I think like
Mm,
no matter what, at least like I am someone who always like has a bunch of goals, things that I want to do. But that doesn't make me any less of, like less worthy or whatever. And so I think it's good to be truthful to ourselves and like understand when we are maybe not in alignment with like what we might value, whether it's like living in a way that's healthy or living in a way that is aligned with maybe some more of our values. And so I think truly um, being truthful and I think we all tend to know when we're not being truthful to ourselves, at least like most of the time, or maybe even reflecting with a friend on it. I think those are moments where it can help us, like, understand our realities in the current moment, know that we are not maybe where we want to be right now, but that we always have room to grow. Like, that's gonna be for anything, no matter what. And then sort of mapping out that roadmap with help. I think that's always really, really helpful to have an accountability partner. So I think once we know, the things that we wanna work on, I think we tend to know when we are dissatisfied with something as well. Then I think, like, that is it's like it's literally up to us and up to us to create that desire for action towards, us remedying something versus, like, am I actually leaning into avoidance or something because I'm trying to numb some other pain.
Mhm.
So I think it's like it's
Yeah.
there needs to be a level of readiness where you wanna take action and you want to, you wanna do the work.
Yeah. Oh, I love what you're saying there. I really like what you said about like being truthful with ourselves. And that made me think of how my closest friends and the people I respect and value the
Mhm.
most are the ones who are not afraid to like call me out,
Mm,
you know? But when they do, they never do it in a way that like puts me down or in a way that like attacks my character or anything like that. It's always like, "Hey, I noticed you did this action, but you're saying you want this."
yeah,
You know? Like, so how does that work? Like, I'm just kind of pointing it out to you so that you can reflect on it. And yeah, I think that just, going off of what you shared of like being our best friend and being truthful to ourselves, like we can still be kind, but also honest of like, okay, here's actually where I'm at. And and like seeking support along the way and finding people around us who can also help us do that. Love that.
yeah, and
Um,
sorry,
yeah,
just
go
to
ahead.
add to that, like, I think, like, being able to truly show up for ourselves, being truthful, like, that is a process, and that's also, like, that true care for ourselves is, like, holistically, that's a skill, and it's absolutely not anyone's fault that they might have, for whatever reason, just like they were never taught that skill. Sometimes in life, at least for me, I don't know if I was ever taught to, like, prioritize myself, but the cool thing is,
Yeah.
like, with skills, like, you can grow your skills, and I know that's
Yeah.
what you did for me. Like, I feel like you really helped give me a roadmap, and you also helped me just, like, build that skill, sprinkled with, like,
Mhm.
encouragement and accountability and wisdom that was absolutely, like, game changing for me. So I'm, like, forever grateful for that.
Ah, wow, that means so much. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. That's huge. I think this is a great place to wrap it up, but we can definitely, I feel like we got to continue this conversation more so people can hear from you and pick your brain more about like, self-love, developing yourself in so many different ways. Because for those of you watching, you probably don't know Steph personally, but she is really big on investing in herself and learning so many different skills. And that is really, really cool to see. The last thing I'll ask you before we wrap up here, just to give a little more context on that, you mentioned at the beginning you have a bunch of different hobbies. Can you list out all of your top hobbies for us?
Do we have enough
Just
time?
so you guys can understand like how many different things she does.
Oh my gosh. I know I'm gonna miss a bunch of them, but, my hobbies, I like rock climbing. I like doing the aerial arts, which is like, for anyone who's looked at like cirque stuff, like aerial silks, trapeze, and lyra hoops. Um, I like singing, making music. I like just learning about technology and like doing, I don't know, just playing with different gadgets. I like cooking. I like baking. Um, I love team sports. I like volleyball. I like soccer a lot. I love basketball. I'm not. I'm also not good at all of these things. I'm in various levels of skill with all of these
I
things,
was
but
actually about to say a lot of those you're quite good at.
uh, I think a lot of those I'm like building my capacity for them. But
Okay.
yeah, I'll stop there because I think I can probably list like 10 more that I enjoy doing. But I will again I think I mentioned this at the beginning. At the core of those, I think there's a lot of joy that comes with I mean, like testing out gadgets, maybe not as much, but like I think there's at the core of these things, there's this aspect of like community that I love. Like I love
Mm,
being in
mhm.
community with other people, being in spaces where I have the opportunity of making people feel like heard, loved, valued, seen. That is like by far probably my favorite overarching thing. So when I get opportunities to do that, particularly that align with like movement and like being active, that is really, really cool to me.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thanks so much for sharing. This was great. If people are interested in connecting with you, where can they find you?
My Instagram handle is nine and then my last name KUO and then OTS. It's like nine quotes. So you're welcome to, yeah, that's
Oh, I
like,
never knew
yeah,
that.
it's not, maybe it's not super
Nice.
obvious, but yeah, you're welcome to message me. You know, if you mention Zach, Gladiator Strength, I'll definitely get back to you.
Yeah, sounds good.